The most terrifying man in The Wire isn't the one who talks the most, it's the one who barely talks at all, because there's a certain kind of silence that isn't empty. It's trained, it's disciplined, it's the silence of someone who has already decided what the world is and what he has to do inside it, and that's Chris Partlow. If you watch closely, Chris doesn't move like a gangster, he moves like an instrument, like violence is a procedure, like fear is a tool, like mercy is a liability. And here's the hook that makes his story scary in a different way. By the end, Chris is the one sitting in a cell for life, while Marlo Stanfield still walks free. Not because Chris is stupid, not because he didn't see it coming, but because Chris's loyalty isn't normal loyalty, it's structural. It's the kind of loyalty that turns into a trap. And once you see why, you realize The Wire isn't just showing you a killer, it's showing you what happens when a human being becomes an operating system. The show never gives you a neat flashback for Chris. There's no speech where he explains himself. The Wire makes you build him from behavior.
Cap a motherfucker, you put a pistol to his head and say pow and he tagged. But what Chris and them doing?
Yo, it ain't working there. I know you making this up.
Word to my mother, yo. Lex ain't dead. I seen him creeping in the alley last night near the playground.
Everybody know Lex is dead.
Nah, there's dead and there's special dead.
Yeah, Chris working that juju shit.
Nah, man, what I'm saying is they zombies. Why you think he take him in the vacants? He need time to change him. You don't believe me, yo, it's on you.
Yo, they funny, ain't they, Michael?
I don't know about that voodoo shit, man. But Chris is definitely doing something. Get a nigga to walk up and out knowing he about to get capped.
Chris, he different. And you can tell by them cool-ass country clothes that nigga be wearing.
So start with the way Marlo runs his world. Marlo doesn't want noise. He doesn't want sentimental politics. He doesn't want people improvising. He wants clean lines, fast decisions, and the kind of obedience that doesn't ask questions.
One more thing. Price of the brick going up. 30 more. Enough of this shit.
Under Avon, there was warmth, twisted warmth, but still, there was history, there were relationships, there was a code people could argue about. Marlo deletes all that. His whole regime is basically no mess, no feelings, no witnesses, just results. And Chris fits into that like a key sliding into a lock. You see it in the vacants. That decision to stash bodies in abandoned row houses isn't just a tactic to avoid police, it's a philosophy.
Chris.
It's Marlo's empire in one image. Erase consequences. Don't let the street even see the cost. You can't have mothers screaming on corners, cops swarming, neighbors whispering. You can't have noise. So you take the victims and you absorb them into the city's forgotten cavities like the city itself is complicit.
We got to start a chain reaction on telephones. Just keep that kind of stuff out of our neighborhood. You got to call.
But few are likely to pick up the phone.
Somehow, they're going to find out who's doing the calling and boom, your life is in jeopardy.
And who does Marlo trust with that most sensitive work? Chris. Not a loud corner boy desperate to prove something, not a reckless trigger finger. Chris is the vault, the one who can do the ugliest work and then walk away without needing applause, without needing comfort, without needing to explain it to himself. That's where Chris's loyalty begins. Marlo gives him something most men in that world don't have: order.
Chris moves like a man allergic to chaos. Quiet, procedural, disciplined. He doesn't improvise morality. He doesn't try to make the violence mean something. He carries out tasks like a technician.
And in a world built on instability, where anything can happen for no reason, that kind of order can feel like safety. Not moral safety, just predictability. A clean operating system. The Wire also codes Chris like a man shaped by military discipline, even if it never confirms a resume. It's in the controlled affect, the planning, the quick, quiet violence without panic, the command presence. He trains people like a sergeant.
Why you think we sitting here?
See you home and who not. Who on the block. Police and whatnot.
That's right. You don't ever want to be the last man to a party. You feel me?
He corrects behavior like he's enforcing doctrine.
Yo, why you shoot low?
If you're close, aim for the head. If not, think vest. That's why you said it.
Whether he was military or not, he's built in that shape. Mission first, emotion later, maybe never.
I ain't saying Omar can't be got. Any nigga can be got. But once we put word to ear, and he learned that we pressing on his head, he's gonna be trying us like we trying him.
You saying I should let it slide?
Nah, we get at him another way.
So Marlo becomes more than a boss. He becomes purpose, and that's the piece that people miss. Chris doesn't chase flash, he doesn't posture, he doesn't enjoy cruelty the way some characters do.
Need a pack of Newport. Self-pack. Let me get one of them too.
He commits to tasks. Marlo gives him a mission: build and protect the Empire, eliminate threats, keep the machine clean.
Tell our people to tool up. I'm on it.
When a man fuses his identity to the mission, loyalty stops being a choice and becomes self-preservation. You're not just loyal to the boss, you're loyal to the version of yourself that has meaning. And Marlo feeds that meaning with something rare: trust. Marlo delegates everything that matters to Chris: enforcement, bodies, discipline, high-stakes decisions. That level of trust isn't sentimental, but it's intimate in a different way. In that world, shared secrets build bonds stronger than friendship, because secrets create mutual liability. If you and I share a laugh, we're friends. If we share a crime, we're connected. But if we share the worst kind of secret, the kind that would bury us both, then we're welded together. And Marlo welds Chris in early. That's why Chris rarely questions Marlo out loud. It's not because Chris is brainwashed, it's because the structure depends on the absence of negotiation. Their organization is built like a blade: simple, sharp, efficient. Blades don't argue with the hand holding them, but the show does something subtle. It lets you see that Chris isn't a robot. There are moments where his eyes tell you everything. Moments where you can read hesitation, calculation, even disagreement, especially when Marlo's decisions drift from practical strategy into pure ego. Look at how Chris thinks about threats like Omar. Chris understands that Omar is more than a man with a shotgun. He's a problem of information, patience, and risk. Going loud invites chaos. Chaos invites witnesses. Witnesses invite heat. Chris leans toward quiet solutions because quiet solutions protect the structure. That's why he's the one who sees how reckless it is to turn the street into a circus over pride. And then there are moments like Junebug, where Marlo's need for absolute respect leads to killing over a rumor. Chris handles it anyway.
Next, we stepped the Junebug for talking that shit. He was a dead man when he opened his mouth. He just walking around not knowing it.
That's another clue about his loyalty. It isn't based on agreeing with every call. It's based on chain of command. Once the king decides, the soldier executes. Asking why is almost a betrayal of the whole operating system.
House last week. Everybody need to shut the fuck up. Look, I'm just saying, if Marlo was all that over Junebug calling him a name, so that y'all drop June and his whole family, then what the fuck? Omar out here calling them bitches every damn day. Omar! What? What you think we ain't gonna catch this nigga gonna get got?
Chris's professionalism becomes his prison. So why does Chris ultimately go down while Marlo still breathes free air? Because Chris doesn't just do work for Marlo. Chris becomes part of what Marlo is. Marlo is the crown, the name people fear. Chris is the engine, the discipline, training, and enforcement that makes the crown real. In a lot of ways, Chris is the father of the operation. The culture, the stability, the routines that turn violence into a repeatable process. Let's dig a little deeper into who Chris Partlow really is, because if you only remember him as Marlo's enforcer, you miss the colder truth. Chris isn't just muscle, he's method. He's the kind of man who treats the street like an operation, not a lifestyle.
Start with the first thing you always notice before he even speaks: his attire. Chris dresses clean, not flashy, not loud, almost uniform-like. The kind of simple, practical look that blends in and stays ready. It's easy to overlook, but it's a tell. In a world where so many guys on the corner dress to be seen,
Chris dresses to function. He's not advertising a personality, he's minimizing variables. That's how he approaches life. Reduce noise, reduce attention, reduce surprise. The street is full of men chasing an image. Chris is chasing control, and you see that control in the way he scopes scenes. Chris has that line where he talks about setting up early, watching first, reading the environment before anything happens. No surprises. He doesn't arrive when the action starts. He arrives before the action exists, when it's still just possibility.
You don't ever want to be the last man to a party, you feel me? That's why I show up to a job an hour before, sometimes two. I don't want nobody setting up on me while I'm setting up on them.
That isn't just good criminal sense. That's a worldview. It suggests a man who has been surprised in life in ways that rewired him. People who haven't been blindsided don't build their entire identity around preventing blindsides. Chris moves like someone who once learned, deep in the body, not in the mind, that surprise is where disaster lives. Even when he kills, notice how he performs it. Chris doesn't toy with people, he doesn't make a show of it.
Chris, please. Don't fret, boss. I got you covered. Quick and clean, I promise.
With the exception of Michael's stepfather, where the personal rage escapes, Chris often tells victims it'll be quick and clean. A few shots, a neat ending. Chris can be gentle the way a technician is gentle, not because he cares, but because he wants the job done correctly. No struggle, no noise, no extra mess. That's what quick really means in his world, less risk. Then there's the language. Chris calls people son, he calls Marlo boss. Those words carry weight because they reveal hierarchy. Son isn't affection, it's a positional label. It's the way a trainer talks to a recruit. It's also persuasion disguised as calm. When you call someone son, you're placing yourself above them without raising your voice. You're asserting authority while keeping the temperature down. Boss is the other side of that coin. It's obedience turned into identity. Chris isn't just following Marlo, he's reinforcing the chain of command every time he says it out loud. And in a system like Marlo's, language isn't casual, it's discipline. You speak the hierarchy so everyone remembers it's real. You also see Chris's intelligence in small, ruthless moments, like the New York detail. The show gives you that almost absurd, chilling scene where a man is exposed as not from here because he doesn't know a local radio reference.
Yo, who made that track?
Yo, who you talking to, dog?
I'm asking who Young Week be.
You mean Two Fat's cousin? Who?
Nah.
Nigga, how the fuck should I know?
Yo, who the fuck is you talking?
Oh, shit.
What's terrifying? Chris is so locked in on environment and authenticity that he uses culture as a lie detector. It's cruel, yes, but it's thoughtful, calculated. He's not killing from impulse, he's killing from risk assessment.
To Chris, an outsider is an uncontrolled variable, and uncontrolled variables get removed. That's what strategy looks like when your morals have been replaced by procedure. And the way he trains Michael tells you everything about how Chris sees the world. When Michael is practicing with paintballs, Chris isn't teaching him how to look tough. He's teaching him how to end things quickly. Aim for the head, make it clean. It's the same philosophy as the quick and clean killings, translated into mentorship.
What's next?
Go to the head. Keep it quick.
Chris almost treats Michael like a pup. Someone he recognizes as serious, someone who can be shaped, someone who might even be worth protecting. You feel that in moments where Chris tries to steer Marlo away from burning Michael too early.
Don't see the boy snitching.
Neither do I. But you ready to bet your future on that?
There's a faint suggestion of pride, like Chris is watching a student learn the craft. But then comes the gut punch. Chris's loyalty to the hierarchy overrides any loyalty to the kid. He can advise, he can advocate. But when Marlo decides, Chris executes. That's the tragedy in miniature. Even when Chris sees something human in Michael, he still belongs to the machine first. You see that again with Bodhi. Chris advises against Michael being the one to take out Bodhi because Michael is too close. Because proximity creates hesitation, and hesitation creates mistakes.
Send a message. Maybe give it to your pup, get him started. And you and Snoop, y'all lay low till the shit head blow down.
Boy worked for Bodie. First time best be someone he ain't know.
That single recommendation shows the depth of his strategy. Chris isn't just thinking about getting the job done. He's thinking about what the job will do to the soldier. Michael needs to stay sharp, stay usable. And part of staying usable is not letting the work contaminate you with emotion.
Yo, Bodie, you better run, yo. Yo, this is my corner. I ain't running nowhere. Bodie, is you crazy?
Chris even understands messaging. After Butchie gets taken out, Chris leaves a man alive to carry the story. That is warfare logic. Sometimes you don't just remove a target, you manage what survives to spread the right fear. It's brutal, but it's coherent. It turns violence into communication. It says, this isn't random. This is controlled. And control is the brand Marlo sells. That's why even other gangsters notice what Chris represents. Cheese jokes about them like they're the Marines. Semper Fi. Always faithful. It lands because it's funny, but it also lands because it's true.
Private.
Damn, y'all some Semper Fi motherfuckers, ain't you? Where Cheese go to enlist?
Chris codes himself like a soldier, faithful to mission, faithful to chain of command, faithful even when faith costs you your life. And maybe the most haunting detail of all is how Chris can switch worlds.
He can be with his girlfriend, with his kids, and say he'll be gone for a moment, as if he's stepping out for milk, not stepping out to erase a human being. That split isn't just sociopathy, it's compartmentalization perfected.
Why don't we go buy up a bunch of toys and take them to your kids?
You ain't hearing me. How can I go near my people with Omar on us?
How you gonna find out about them?
How we find out about the blind man?
It's a man who has built sealed rooms inside his mind, family in one room, murder in another, and the doors never open at the same time. So when the show shows us Chris seeing a setup forming around Marlo, watching the angles, reading the threat through the quiet, it's not just plot, it's character. Chris is a man who lives ahead of the moment because the moment is where people get surprised, and surprise is where people die. He doesn't live for the thrill, he lives to eliminate uncertainty, and that's the deeper conclusion these scenes build. Chris isn't loyal because he's blind. He's loyal because he believes order is the only thing standing between him and the kind of chaos he can't survive twice. If Marlo falls, it's not just Marlo's empire that collapses, it's Chris's world. It's his identity, and that's where the fear comes in. Because Chris's loyalty includes fear, but not the obvious kind. Chris isn't scared Marlo will yell. He's scared of something deeper, losing structure, losing the mission, losing the only place where his skills make sense. Some people fear meaninglessness more than death. Now add the heaviest layer, Chris's trauma. The Wire gives you one key fracture in his composure, and it's not about money or territory, it's about predators. When Chris attacks Michael's stepfather, when that man enters the story, Chris's violence feels different. The calm breaks, it turns personal. The show doesn't give you a monologue about Chris's past, but it codes the trigger. This isn't just business, this is a wound. So here's the darkest part of why Marlo fits him. Marlo's world gives Chris a sanctioned outlet. It turns pain into control. It turns rage into duty. It lets Chris organize trauma into something that feels righteous and useful. Under Marlo, Chris doesn't have to be vulnerable. He can be effective. And then you get to the trapdoor, sunk cost. By the time we meet Chris, he can't leave even if he wants to. He's buried too many bodies, built too much of the machine. Leaving isn't switching jobs, it's amputating your entire life.
Hey, Steve.
Once you cross certain lines,
I'm in the game, yo.
Doubling down can feel easier than facing what you've become.
So Chris stays, he handles it. He keeps the machine quiet. And that's why the ending is so chilling. Because it isn't a surprise twist that the soldier goes down. It's the oldest story in organized power.
The king survives by letting the blade take the blame. If Chris Partlow is the engine of Marlo Stanfield's empire, then Michael Lee is the proof that the engine doesn't stop when the driver gets out. And that's the uncomfortable thing The Wire keeps whispering. The king matters, sure, but the system matters more. The crown can fall, the method survives. That's where Chris's loyalty becomes something darker than devotion, because by the time we're deep into the Stanfield era, Chris isn't just doing Marlo's work, he's manufacturing Marlo's future. Watch how Michael enters the story. Michael doesn't drift toward Marlo because he wants to be cool. He's not chasing status. He's tense, guarded, carrying the weight of a house that's never fully stable. His mother is addiction and chaos in human form. Unreliable, manipulative, unpredictable. One day she's affectionate, the next day she's a threat. The show doesn't need to tell you this kid has trauma.
What you doing? I'm gonna take you home.
Nah, no thank you.
Michael, come on now, serious.
Nah, no thank you. I'm good from here.
You can see it in how he looks at adults like they're all potential liabilities. And Michael's obsession is simple. Bug is the one clean thing in his world. The one person he can love without suspicion. So Michael becomes a little adult, managing the household emotionally, trying to keep the chaos from reaching his little brother. So Michael makes the decision the system pressures kids into making all the time. He finds power where power is available, not where it's healthy, where it's real. And that's when he meets Chris. What's chilling is how quickly Chris reads him. Chris doesn't charm Michael, he assesses him. He watches how Michael stands, how he speaks, how he holds his fear, and you can almost feel Chris recognizing something familiar. A kid shaped by instability, a kid who doesn't trust comfort, a kid who can't rely on adults, a kid whose pain could be turned into discipline. So Chris becomes what the school system, the social system, and the family system failed to be. An adult who can actually solve the problem. But the cost is that the solution is violent. When Michael's stepfather gets handled, Chris's composure changes. It's not routine work anymore. It feels personal, like something in Chris has been waiting for that moment. The Wire never gives you an explicit backstory, but it doesn't need to. It gives you the trigger. Chris reacts to predators with rage that breaks through his training. That's a reflex. So now tie that to Marlo. Marlo gives Chris a world where that reflex can be a virtue, where violence doesn't need to be mourned, just managed, where your worst instincts can be converted into duty, where your trauma can be organized into something that feels like justice. And if that's what Marlo offers Chris, Chris offers Michael the same package. Not comfort, not healing, structure. Chris teaches Michael how to survive by becoming harder than the world around him. You see it in the way Michael starts changing. How he stops laughing, stops trusting, stops letting people get close. The more he learns the Stanfield method, the less human he appears.
Y'all bought me ice cream off the truck. You remember, Mike?
Because humanity is treated like a liability. When you grow up in a world that punishes softness, the first thing you do is bury it.
Chris is an expert at burying. That's why the relationship between Chris and Michael is one of the most important in the entire show. It's not sentimental, but it's intimate. Chris becomes the father Michael never had, but not a nurturing father, a war father.
A man teaching another man how to survive the battlefield. And that reveals something about Chris's loyalty that's easy to overlook. He's invested because he built the culture, he built the discipline, he built the code that makes Marlo's name carry weight. Marlo doesn't train, Marlo doesn't correct, Marlo doesn't shape the crew day to day, Chris does. Marlo is the crown, Chris is the operating system. So when people ask why would Chris go down for Marlo, the answer isn't because he's dumb, and it isn't just because he's scared. It's because by the time it matters, Chris isn't thinking like an employee, he's thinking like a builder. If you build a system and the system collapses, you don't just lose your job, you lose your identity. Everything you did, every line you crossed, every piece of yourself you buried in those vacants becomes meaningless. And that's not just scary, that's unbearable. So loyalty becomes self-preservation, and secrecy deepens it. Because the more Chris handles, the more the bond becomes welded by shared darkness. Marlo trusts him with everything. Chris knows everything.
You're they making movies.
Yeah, how you want to play it?
I ain't sure. Let's see the fat man. How the other thing turn out?
All good.
And in that world, knowledge is a chain. Once you've carried the secrets, you're not a man anymore, you're a vault. Now bring the police in, but only enough to see the picture clearly. The Wire makes a point that the systems around the street are also incentive machines. Police departments chase stats, Commanders chase clearance, politicians chase optics. It's not that nobody cares, it's that caring doesn't always pay. And that creates a weird reality where the street is constantly reacting to pressure, but the pressure rarely hits the top cleanly. It hits the corners, it hits the disposable people, it hits the soldiers, which sets up the most bitter irony possible. The soldier does life while the king still breathes free air. That's the curse of being the one who makes the phone calls real. Chris's loyalty is exactly what makes him useful to Marlo, and it's exactly what makes him expendable when the world finally closes in, because kings survive by distance, and soldiers survive by obedience, until obedience carries them into the grave or into a cell. By the end, Chris is processed by the justice system, and it feels almost inevitable. Not triumphant, not satisfying. It's like watching the last step of a conveyor belt. The work goes down the line, and the person closest to the mess is the person who gets swallowed. And yet, Chris still isn't just a monster. That's the final twist The Wire gives you, and it's the most disturbing one. Chris has a moral spine in there somewhere, twisted, buried, tangled in violence, but alive. The way he reacts to predators is proof. The way he has a family is proof. He isn't heartless, he's contained, but containment isn't healing. Containment is just turning pain into control. So what is Chris Partlow's loyalty to Marlo when you strip the myth away? It's a bond between a man who desperately needs structure and a leader who offers structure as a weapon. It's identity fusion, where the mission becomes the self. It's intimacy through secrecy. It's transactional respect that feels safer than love. It's existential fear of meaninglessness. It's sunk cost so heavy it becomes a spiritual sentence. And in the end, Chris's story doesn't close when he goes to prison, because the show makes sure you see the real horror. The method survives.
Smart nigga. You always was. How you know?
Y'all taught me. Get there early.
Michael walks away with the same guarded eyes, the same cautious posture, the same emotional lockdown. The machine doesn't end when the boss falls. It just finds a new operator.
How my hair look, Mike?
You look good, girl.
So when you think about Chris sitting in that cell, the grim truth isn't just he went down for Marlo. The grim truth is that he went down for the only world that ever made his damage feel useful. And once a man finds a world like that, leaving it isn't freedom, it's withdrawal.
Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. I might do a bunch of Wire videos based on how this goes. Any feedback would be great. See you in the next video.